Welcome to another Geometry Dash 2.2 tutorial. In this tutorial I will show you, as some people requested, to do a tutorial for the time trigger. In the time trigger I'm also using another trigger which I will explain for short. This is the Timewarp trigger, which I need to explain you what specific option also. Yeah. If you like the tutorial, it would be nice if you leave a like or even a subscribe. You're free to request other tutorials in the comment section. Let's start. But before we start, I remind you, I've set for this tutorial the platformer mode and I begin with the ship. So I will start now with triggers. I will first explain you about a time trigger, then I also need these both triggers for some option available for the time trigger, and afterwards, at the last one, I go to the event trigger. Here I have set like the item ID, because you will need this text here, which you can find here in the editor, in order to set here the time or show it up. And I am using here the time counter. If you don't pick this one, it will not work as a time counter. So, here we go now at a time trigger. Here you set the start time, at which time you want to start. You can also make your countdown, by the way, like that you start here at 100 seconds and it counts down until 0. This is the stop time. Here you set up that if that time should stop, then you pick also this box here, and if the time stops, then the target ID gets triggered. As I have mentioned, you need the item ID here, which will be working as a timer, and here you can set the time mode. 1.00 is the default, like the normal one. If you set 1.2, then the time will go double much, and if you set here a minus, that it counts down like a countdown. We can do like here 1. Let's start the time at, I would say, 10 seconds, and let's say we stop the time as 5 seconds and making it counting down. Then it should activate target ID 1. And for target ID 1 we make something simple. This block is the next group 2. And if time starts and reaching the stop time, checking the box, then it will activate target ID 1 when reaching the 5 seconds. And when it reaches the 5 seconds, then our block, which has the target group ID 2, will move 2 grids down. So now it's counting, and at 5 seconds the block is moving down. That is one setup you can use. You can also watch it multiple times or try it out on your own in the editor. So now we are going into the time trigger checkboxes here. We are starting with the ignore time warp. That means that it should ignore that trigger here, which you can use to either speed up your player or slow it down. The ignore time warp should actually ignore that the time speed ups at it does now, but kinda it doesn't. I guess it's a bug, but I'm not sure. I'm just thinking that ignore time warp would mean that it should ignore that the time should go double speed and just counts down in my case as normally, like in a normal seconds and not double much seconds. So yeah, this is what ignore time warp should be. The next one is start paused. Starting pause is that it not starts the timer, that you have start the timer using a control trigger. A control trigger is very simple actually. Here you set up the item ID and choose whether start or stop. If you stop it, you're pausing the timer. If you start it, you're starting the timer. Set it here on touch trigger and starting it paused. Our timer here. And now it starts with a start timer 10 seconds. And if I go now on the controls trigger, which should start our timer, when the timer goes down. So yeah, this is about the start pause. Now we are going to a more complicated one. This is the don't override checkbox. For the don't override, I will copy paste now our time trigger here and set up another start time. Let's make 20 seconds as start time. Going infinite down and set it on touch trigger here. Yeah. I set this one on start paused, or this value has to be 0, only then it will work. And this one I have set that it not don't overrides and goes to 20 seconds. So you see at first what it will do or what will happen. Now it start paused on 10 seconds. And if I go now here on the touch time trigger, when it counts down from 20 seconds as we have set. But if I now set here the don't override, when it doesn't override the time we have set and just begins to count down. Like our 10 seconds here didn't got overwritten as before with the 20 seconds. Because we have a don't override button here. That is what don't override is doing. The next trigger I'm showing to you will be the event trigger here. We have set here that the start time is 10 seconds. That is fine, and if the time stops at 5 seconds, our block is moving down by 2 grids. Event trigger is that if you want to independently move the block here around before the time stops, or without using here the stop time, you can also use the time event trigger here. Here we set 1. Here you set the target ID which should be activated at a specific time. Let's say at a time 7 seconds. So if item ID 1 reaches 7 seconds, it activates target ID 3. And the target ID 3, as we have set here, will be a move trigger, moving our block, which is target ID 2, 2 grids to the right, making it spawn triggered and adding the group ID 3. Now we are also starting our timer. Now it moves to right, and now it moves down. Yeah, what you can do with this one is all up to you, but I hope it was helpful in order to understand the triggers here I have shown. I recommend you to try it on your own in the editor and just do what I do maybe for the example learning, and then you just use it on the way you want. If you want, you can of course always ask also in the comments how to do something with the time triggers. Thanks for watching the tutorial. I would be happy if you like or subscribe it, or subscribe to my channel. You are always free to ask questions or suggest tutorials in the comments. Goodbye and see you next time in my next tutorial.